Great, and we're live. Welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today, all the way from, I forgot to even verify this, from Warsaw, Poland. Great, woo! I have Magda Ferretti. And Magda, you are a business trainer and coach, an organizational psychologist, and you've done your PhD research on leadership in virtual teams. Is that right?
For having me, and I'm really super delighted and super excited to share some tips and tricks in my own experience and some research-based results with the audience of your great podcast.
Oh, thanks. And when I saw your background, I just had to have you on the podcast. So let's start with the first question, which is, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Sure. I was thinking whether I can show you something big, but what I need is laptop. So I'm just holding it now. I love to work with the flip chart, and because I run workshops and also write down my ideas. So in the preparation for the workshops I have with the clients, then I would need the camera because I'm running some individual coaching sessions and also sometimes online on-demand training, and the quality I need mostly is silence. So that's why I wouldn't go to coffee shops or restaurants. I would rather go to library for some creative deep work or just stay at home. So currently I'm in my empty bedroom, and that's how I use the bed.
Those are, for the podcast listeners, there are a lot of sticky notes on that mattress.
Exactly. So another thing I want to mention is they really love the paper, the colorful sticky notes, the post-it, the colorful paper, like the printer paper, and I like to write down many things. So that's why sometimes my office and even the virtual office may seem a little bit messy, but it's all that I really need to have my work done. I write lots of things, and if I need to share them with people, I would take picture or store them through Google Docs or through tools such as Padlet, and just show what I'm working on. And then also I would need to think about better way to share my ideas with others, and I would be more motivated to just select the most important points that were in my mind. So basically, silence is the first condition, then the laptop and the high internet connection, and flip chart and papers.
I love it. I'm also a very tactile person. I have to write things down. I really like having paper to write. Yeah.
Yes, I do. And now my biggest discovery is this sticky, just with electric static papers. I don't know whether you use them, but I love them, and they can be stick to anywhere.
Awesome. So for those who are listening, she's sticking these there. I think they're staties, they're called, and they, with static electricity, they stick to everything. She stuck them to herself and also on paper. So yeah, indeed, because you want to move things around and yeah.
Then we do sometimes in the remote space, but I think starting, because I'm working most of the time on my own, I can do the way I really prefer it to be done. So that's my office.
So let's dive into a little bit about what you do. I have that. So you've gotten your PhD research on leadership in virtual teams. We are totally going to dive into that. You've also managed distributed teams for multinational clients. And now it says you're training Polish companies on how to introduce home office policy. And you're also training the managers around that. So and you're writing an ebook. We'll get into that as well. But first, tell us about these trainings that you're giving over home office policies. And why is Poland going more towards working from the home office?
Sure. So maybe just one step back, like why I love this topic so much. And it's not only because I like to listen the podcasts you have and other people, and the topic is now very popular, but I really have this personal experience that we can have a valuable, long-lasting personal relationship, notwithstanding the distance. So why wouldn't, because of the current technology, So I'm a kid of a father that works on the sea, on the tankers, and we were able to stay as a loving family, first through fax, then first through letters, then fax, then the emails, then the FaceTime, finally connections because of the internet. So I experienced this myself. Then I had this loving relationship with my current husband, Giovanni, who and we were also 2 countries apart, because he was in Italy and I was in Poland, and we made it last for I think 2 years before he moved here. So when I was thinking also about some friendship relations, if we are able to keep them at the long distance, why we think that working across different countries, zones, regions would be such a problem. So that is my personal stake at this, why I'm interested in this topic and why I thought about it, both from the professional experience also I have, was also communicating always with teams that are far away from my office and clients as well. And then that's why I decided to combine the research and find topic that would address this personal interest and this professional experience. And now this being done for the last 10 years, I decided maybe it's a good moment to open my own small training and coaching company and share some of this knowledge, experience, and best practices from the market. So that's a short story behind it.
That is really interesting, especially so your father's worked on these tanker ships.
Yes, as chief engineer now. So it used to be really long contracts, like 6 months, even 8 months in the past. And the only way to communicate would be to send letters that would go 3 weeks one way. And that's only how you could stay updated with what's going on. So I personally experienced the whole development of the technology that allows for communication between people. I remember us with my mommy and my sister standing in the post office waiting for the fax, like fingers crossed whether it will be successful or not. And
wow.
So I think it's good to see that anyway within this short time span, so much has changed.
Right. Indeed. We now have video communication, holograms are around the corner. Like it's really, it's more overwhelming now than anything. It's how much information that we can get and how much contact we can have with people. But I love the backstory.
You mentioned still there is such a big resistance in the companies, and it's not that easy. Like I thought, working there, like researching the topic, I thought that everyone is working online. Like it's so popular, everyone is talking about working online, because I was so interested in the topic and remote work myself. But then when I go to the market and I talk to organizations, to managers, it seems there is still a long way to go. When I look at the Eurostat report, like for 2018, about how many people really work from home in the European Union, it seems that in Poland it's 4 and 6%, and the average European Union will be 5% of people working sometime from home, being fully employed. So still it will be not that big group of people, but I think the change is there to come. And the interest is there because basically majority of candidates to work ask for these flexible options and look for some more freedom in deciding from where they work.
Indeed. And what do you think it is that why are people hesitating in allowing people to work from home so much? What's the main resistance that you're seeing from managers and organizations from doing it?
Mm-hmm. So the sad thing is when I look back, like when IBM in '79 was supporting this work from home solution, the arguments were the same like now, which is quite sad because 40 years and people mindset didn't change. So I think there will be exactly this psychological blockades of thinking like, if I don't see this person, I don't observe this person, how can I know she works, or how can I support her? People, I think, lack knowledge about the solutions available at hand. like you many times mentioned in your discussions, there is so much technology at hand, but it's overwhelming, so that we don't even try to find better solutions. Sometimes there is policy of the company, and it's simply easy to go to another desk and ask for something. So as human in general, we are a little bit lazy. So we like the way we worked, and it used to work well. So why to change? Why to bother? So I think the resistance comes from this. Then there is another challenge. I don't think it's only in Poland, but I see it quite regularly, especially in some government organization I worked with recently. They have this concern about work security, this how to assure the same conditions of work from the perspective of security of the modes of how comfortable should be the chair, the ergonomics of the workplace, and so on. Or if accident at work happens when you are at home, what about the insurance? What about responsibilities of the employer versus employee? And such kind of challenges. So I think the legislation in Poland is getting changed, but still we are waiting for a more clear and less strong rules about telecommuting full time. So what many companies do is that they start with flexible like hours first, when to start, and then they go for home office a few days per month or 1 day per week, and then start slowly the process of the change. And I think this makes sense, the small steps, but still you need to be well prepared, because there could be also resistance. What I noticed talking with my clients, even from the worker unions, that they are afraid that if you give this benefit of working from home, it will mean that you cannot take medical leave any longer, because why wouldn't you work from home? Or that taking so even if you are sick, you need to stick to work because you have conditions at home. Or sometimes people don't have really conditions in their flats. I read recently some very anti-remote work article that says the flats are so small, there is not comfortable space, so it could be another challenge. But then it's also again mindset, because you working remotely doesn't mean that you must work from home. You could work from a library, you could work from some other office. I heard about such government solutions in UK, that they would rent parts of libraries which are empty, the local ones, so that local government workers could work from there instead of going to the whole city and commuting for 1 hour to get this work done. So sometimes being a little bit creative could resolve the problem.
I love that. I love the idea of just using these empty spaces that may not be getting very much use anymore and turning them into something else.
Yeah, I have this confirmed source. That's what they do in London. So I can
Yeah. Totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, it totally makes sense. There's lobbies of hotels I've noticed have started turning into more co-working spaces. So co-working spaces during the day, and then they get used more as lobbies in the evening when people are coming back from their business meetings or trips, or, that's when they're there. And why not open it up to coworkers during the day?
Okay, not only now I think about, I also saw there is a big boom in construction industry in Warsaw, at least, and in whole Poland. And I see already offers of, you can buy apartment where they guarantee you not only like a gym, common for the people who buy the flat, but also this co-working space within the apartments. I mean,
Wow.
like there, down the building, so that people like neighbors can work together and share the experience. So it's really kind of, either it's just a trend, but at least it speaks to me. I'm convinced I would buy a flat there.
Yeah, what a great feature. Absolutely. Because when my husband and I were looking for our house, one of the requirements was that it had to have a separate office space that was separate from, not necessarily, I mean, a separate house, separate from the house would be good, but a place where if I could close the door, then he wouldn't have to hear any of my business stuff going on. And, at the end of the day, I could close the door and the office was left behind. That was one of our main requirements.
Yeah.
So having an apartment building that had that built in, it seems like a great feature for people who want to work from home or from the building next door, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So the advantages are exactly this. So you don't waste time commuting, and you are not isolated, and it's easier to separate work life spheres of life. So I think it's really nice solution. And you don't need to spend so much money on coffees when you work from coffee shop. You are there between the neighbors, and I think it's good because also this way you meet your neighbor, your local community gets valued.
Great idea. I really like it. So yeah, indeed, there seems to be a lot of reasons that company are resisting, and some of them are really good reasons. We do need to have the security things in place. And I think also the ergonomics of where people work, whose responsibility is that? In some place, like in the US, people get their health care through their companies. Mm-hmm. So then you would think that the companies would have some responsibility in terms of setting up ergonomically correct home offices as well. As having that option available in the office. So yeah, it probably varies across culture and how things are set up, but those things do need to be taken into consideration, I can imagine, before you just sort of let people work from anywhere that they want, amongst all the other things that come up when we let people work from wherever they want. Yeah. But I really want to make sure that we dive into the leadership aspect of working remotely, because this is your specialty, is working with leaders on virtual teams. Oh, and I also want to talk more about the home office policies, but we'll get there. Well, let's talk about leadership first. What are the main differences that you see in leadership and leading a team in person versus virtually? What's the style of leadership that needs to change there?
It could be like it's already difficult to manage people in the same place, and it's even more difficult, they say, when your team is far away. But I wouldn't agree. I would say it's not more difficult, it's just different. So I think the biggest difference is that you need to get used to these new ways. And when I did my research back in from 2012 or even earlier, it seems that the majority of the literature and the research was concentrated on benefits and drawbacks of this, comparing both words. And still the technology changed so much, and I think it depends for whom it's different, because when you think about young people that are used to the technology in their private lives, it's not that difficult, the technology that needs to be introduced in the remote teams. But when I think about one difference between leading remote teams and traditional face-to-face teams, is I think really the technology. I mean, you need to be aware that without this technology, your role of leader of this team wouldn't be possible. And the best test to this is like if people lose internet connection or if the electricity is down, you know that you cannot accomplish your work, you cannot reach your team, you cannot pass the results of your work. And instead, when you're in the same office, it happened to me when I worked for Citibank, even if the electricity is gone, you can or the internet connection is gone, you can collect the people around one table, you could still brainstorm, you could use the paper instead of writing emails. So the communication on the distance with the proper technology usage is I think a key. And then the processes around how to communicate with these people who are not sitting in the same room as you are the key differentiators.
So yeah, indeed, having the awareness that you are relying on technology, yes, that is a component of working virtually. So there is a certain amount of tech savviness that is needed to be able to navigate the technologies, I think, and to really use them correctly. That I think managers or leadership needs to take into account. But you also mentioned that there are different processes for communication. What are some of those processes? Can you dive into that a little?
Sure. So I think first of all, just to be more intentional about how you plan the communication, because it's not that by default I will go to your desk, I will disturb you, and we will just talk. So one is to set this agreement how certain media of communication will be used. And then another thing is that I think managers really miss when they lead remote teams is how to be example, how to lead as a role model if they don't see me. So this is another thing, like not only I don't see them, I cannot observe whether they work or not, but also they cannot see me. So how can I be their role model? And in these terms, it's again through communication, because if the only way to observe your employees, your team members, is by how they communicate, how they use the platforms available, the same holds true for the leader. So how I communicate about me, for instance, being out or out from my desk, whether I put some status update on the communicator tool, or whether I admit that because we are in these flexible circumstances, it's good that maybe I'm going to take a nap, or I'm going to take a jogging session. If I admit about this, then other people will do the same. So there is no need for control, because this control is useless if you share everything. So about communication is what you share, not only how, but also what you share, and how you give examples of to others what's acceptable. Basically, what norm, what rules, what behaviors are standard and normal. Because of course, observation is how we learn lots of things, how kids learn lots of things, how new employees learn the rules in a given company. So you need to create these observation moments, not only while by using video conference with camera on, but because of course I know that you love it and I love it too, but also just to let your behaviors be more observable. So, and also be vulnerable. I have just recently came across this CEO of GitLab, great website, when he's speaking about him as CEO, what he likes, what are his errors, why he, for instance, doesn't smile that much as he could, and the feedback he got about himself, and he's sharing like publicly with everyone, which already made me feel really, he's so great, he's so open, he's so honest. Imagine the people who work with him and could reach him anytime, and he's available. So another thing about communication, make yourself available, and present yourself in this personal context. Don't hesitate to talk about your weak points and also your strength, but like be open and communicate as much as possible, because without your communication, people really cannot see you like you cannot see them.
Indeed. I really like that, but I can imagine that is very scary for a lot of managers, is to show them their vulnerable sides. Like, hey, I'm not so secure or not so confident about all these different things. I'm insecure about, yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, even for myself, like I'm pretty open in that way, but people use your weaknesses against you sometimes. So we also have to be really careful what we show and how we do it. And I think it's really brave of it was GitLab or GitHub that you mentioned? GitLab. Yeah, it was really brave of him to show this weakness to the world.
But I think if you consider sometimes these weaknesses are in our head, or we are scared that someone will point them to us. But I mean, if you already show them this, I know about my weakness, like for instance, it could be for me, my English, and also here it's great because I share the same weakness with him, like I make mistakes in English. I mean, if I say this myself, I'm relaxed because I don't expect someone to shoot on me this argument, because I'm ready, I'm aware of this, I'm working on it, and that's the end. So when we think about anonymous haters in internet, they are strong only if you really are scared of them and they point to your weak points that maybe you were not aware of. And if it's already done, you admit, okay, I have this kind of problem, challenge, I'm working on that. They have no reason to point it, because it becomes no valid surprise news or shocking fact.
It's true. You disarm it before it can before it can really do anything. Indeed, indeed. Great argument. I love that. We also were discussing a little bit before we started recording the idea of shared leadership and how that was a different model for how managers are leading remote teams. So I would love to dive more into what you mean by shared leadership and why it's so important on teams.
Sure. So that's what I dedicated my PhD research. This was the topic. So shared leadership in virtual teams, which means remote teams. So analyzing different styles of leadership is not my way to go, like whether it's charismatic, transformative, and so on. I concentrated more about the behaviors that are inside the leadership concept. So which means leader is someone that leads you or leads the group towards some goal, some aim. And that's how I understand. So I thought more about leadership behaviors, and it seems when we define first leadership behaviors as something that allows the team, because let's concentrate on the team level, like we will see the team leader and with the, let's say, a group of people of 8 team members. Leadership is to make these people achieve the team goals at one hand, so bring the results, and at the other hand, to satisfy the needs of the team members. So more like relationship side. So we have results and relations, so that if we keep both the organization, the team goals satisfied, and the team members satisfied, identified with the team, we will have our final aim of this team. And this leadership roles, if we look at what it means, it could be, for instance, first identifying what's the goal, then thinking how to achieve it, planning over some barriers that will make this achievement more difficult, and implementing some changes, implementing the actions to achieve the goals. It could be the leadership roles and the functions that the leader should perform. And as we mentioned, in the modern organizations, it's already very difficult to be this superhero and decide, be the only leader. In the remote team, it's even more difficult to be the only source of leadership for the team. So in this way, if we share this among the team members, it makes more sense. It makes them feel more engaged, to identify more with the team and to bring higher results. So I verified this by checking what's the impact of this shared leadership on the team performance, on the results of the teams, how well they think they performed. And it seems that the influence was much stronger when we talk about virtual teams. So the people who met face-to-face less frequently. So it didn't hold true at this time that much for the co-located teams, but indeed when people were not sharing this face-to-face experience, this was like a mechanism to link the team to the team results through this shared leadership. So this was the finding. And when I read like now the recent research, this shared leadership in virtual teams really makes sense. It could be part of the training curriculum also, because of course it's difficult for the managers to admit, yeah, the leadership could be shared. I can share this with you because it's again mindset and traditional understanding of the leadership. It's some fear of becoming irrelevant for the team, but this is not true, because the leader should become the source of leadership and should encourage team members to take these leadership roles, to see their potential, because blocking their autonomy and hindering decision-making process just can jeopardize the whole team effectiveness. And in the end, the team leader that doesn't allow the team members to be involved in some leadership decisions, doesn't allow for autonomy, could make the results lower and could disturb the team. that need to develop, and especially in this remote context. Lots of members are such experts in their field that it's impossible to be micromanaged. They could just, and even if you want, you are not able to check exactly what they are doing. You can just see the results. You can, or even just to see whether the results work for the clients, because it's impossible to have the competencies of all the individual team members. Only together in this very narrow field of expertise, they would, adding each puzzle, they will create a beautiful picture together.
I think it is very interesting that your research showed that the shared leadership model was less effective in person than it was remote. Like when you go remote, you almost have to do it. Yes. In order to, or it really helps if you do it, because you're right, having the sort of hero leader on a remote team doesn't exactly work. There's people need to make decisions independently because
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So it is actually quite a transition for leaders to go remote because one, they have to learn a new style of behavior and of making their own person more observable to sort of lead by example, and they have to share their leadership responsibilities with other people on the team. So that's actually some really major shifts that need to be done. How do people start with the shift in mindset? How do you help them? I don't know. How do you help them with awareness and what would a leader do? How would you advise them to start down this trail?
Sure. So I think first is just to think about leadership first and distance second, distance. So that you think what is exactly needed to be good leadership despite where people located, and you just try to find the real important roles of managers. When I think about this big Google Oxygen project, they proved that indeed managers are useful for the company. First, they tried to eliminate them in 2002, then 2008. There was idea just to check, so these great managers and these bad managers, and you can apply the ideas to both remote and co-located team managers, what they really need to do. So they need to be good coaches, and it's Google saying this, not me as a coach. They need to empower people and not micromanage, and they need to create this environment in which people are inclusive, in which they care about their well-being and their support. So when we think about this, like typical Google or like developer team of people that don't sit in the same place, we need to first be aware of the differences, how to complete the same task, but on the distance. So again, think about communication, admit our own weaknesses, just to create a plan, what I need to do to be there, to be able to be great leader as I'm in the same place, but on the distance. I recently worked with the lady that leads successfully the team that is co-located in Warsaw. Now her new responsibility is to manage the team that is in India. So now she's totally excited, but also she fears simply how she will manage this, because all she did so far was to do many things face to face with the whiteboard, and now how to pass all these great practices that you are used to do with this distance in mind. So just to think about this analysis, like who I am as a leader of co-located team and who I want to be as a leader of remote team. And then of course the knowledge, because we don't want people just to make the research you did for your book, I'm doing, like to search all the internet, all the books. There are a few tips you could apply depending on the context by first searching the knowledge from outside or getting individual sessions about their particular situation, and to consider what's to be done and what are the next steps, like workshops, like implementing the ideas, checking whether they work, and then deciding whether to continue or not, and just to experimenting with this. But definitely first the awareness that there is the difference, the vision, how I want to be perceived, how I want to behave as a remote leader, and then the implementation of some practices. The best will be not to learn from your own mistakes, but also to check first what other people did, and then to learn from your own mistakes.
I really love it. So, one is get training on how to be a good leader and how to be a good coach, and get training on how to lead remotely, both.
Yeah.
There's two aspects of that. And what I like is a lot of people think that going remote is really easy. They have these visions of people working on beaches or in their pajamas. And it's really misleading because yes, remote work gives us all this freedom, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. And it doesn't mean that we're all sitting around in our pajamas. It's just a totally different style of leading. And I do think that the whole digital nomad vision sort of hurts because it makes it look easy when in actuality there are real skills that people need to train for in order to be really good at this.
Exactly, and you ask, I think if you ask majority of people whether they were trained, whether anyone gave them any kind of advices, majority would say no, because like I was working for 10 years from home office in irregular basis, but did anyone tell me how to do it? No. Did my manager have any training, was instructed on how to lead the people who are working from home? No. So I think it's missing. We already mentioned this before. Academia, like the standard universities, are introducing the programs now, but so many people on the market are already working and practicing, but they simply don't know how it could be done in a better, more effective way. So it's simply a skill we could learn, and of course we would love to help others learn it.
Indeed. And man, we are totally running out of time. We have run out of time. But I don't want to end before mentioning that you are working on an ebook about Polish companies and entrepreneurs and how they're leading for a distance. So that's a project that's still ongoing, and no deadline yet. We won't give any. If I learned anything from writing my book, is don't give deadlines because people hold you to them. So, but it is in the works, which should be really interesting, actually. But I guess what we should end with is, if people want to learn more about you and about the book and about the research that you've done, what is the best way to find you?
Yes, so I have my website, www.magdaferretti.pl. I can be found on LinkedIn under my empowerment business owner, and on Facebook fan page, Empowerment Magda Ferretti.
Great. And I will link all of those in the show notes so that listeners have an easy way. Just go to the show notes and link to it, and you can find Magda there. Magda, thank you so much for your time and information today. I took a ton of notes, so I really learned a lot. I really am excited to share this with other people. And thank you for taking the time today.
It's a lovely day. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Until next time, be powerful.